Hi, this is Alicia with Falcone Family Farm. Spring is here and it's time to do a little maintenance on the goats, and that is coming up next. Now jumping right into it, and these are in no particular order, we'll look for copper deficiency in our goats. One of the first signs of copper deficiency is fishtail, where you're kind of missing hair on the tip of the tail of your goat, and it looks a little bit more like a fishtail. You can buy the little copper bolus capsules. It's just got little copper rods in it for your goat. Usually it's 1 capsule per goat. I believe it's like 1 gram per 25 pounds of animal. And you get your bolusing gun. Now what I have here is just a cheapie. I just bought something cheap on the fly. I wouldn't recommend it. Your goat could probably very easily crack this cheap plastic in their mouth and swallow it. You'll want to get something more like this, where you can get it past the goat's teeth, because that is another problem with this little cheap plastic one, is it can be hard to get it down far enough past their teeth to where they're not going to chew the capsule once you pop it in. So get something more like this. But anyway, we just load it up with the copper bolus. There's some people out there that will break the capsule open into a treat or banana. That'll still get your goat the copper, but it's not going to last as long. The directions say to get the whole capsule down into their gut so that it's a slow release. So this is how we do it. I tie the goat up to a tree, get them to the end of the leash, and just grab their mouth, open it wide, stick it down, and pop it in as far back as I can, and then immediately follow it up with a little bit of treat like grain. And that seems to go pretty well, and haven't had a really much of a problem with it that way, and that's been successful for us. Next on the list is checking for lice. This is pretty common for goat herds, and pretty much anybody that owns a goat is most likely familiar with it. It's as simple as just preening through your goat's coat to look for them. They are generally visible. The way we manage it when we see it is we have a bulk bag of sulfur powder that seems to take care of the problem pretty well. Severe cases of lice, you will see it without even having to preen through your goat's coat. Their coat gets kind of thin and dull, and you can tell something's up. Plus they'll be itchy. But we check for it a few times in the year. A lot of times it's going to be spring, maybe fall, that you'll see it creep up. But yeah, just a little sulfur powder, and that seems to handle it just fine. Another common thing to watch out for with goats is how many parasites they have. A good way to check for that is by looking at their eyelid. The more red their eyelid is, the better. If it's pale, then that means they have a pretty high worm load, and that you'll want to deworm them. How we do it naturally, we don't like to use the traditional methods out there. We go more natural, and we just allow them to browse on pine needles when we're on our walks. Another good one is pumpkin seeds. They've got something in them that makes parasites detach from the stomach wall. And there's also herbal dewormers online as well that are available. Hoof trimming. We check our goats' hooves every couple of months or so. Sometimes they need to be trimmed, sometimes they don't. It depends on the weather. If the weather's been nasty and wet and we haven't really been going on our walks, the hooves are going to be longer. If it has been nice dry weather and we've been able to go out and hike the rocks and the hard road, that helps grind down the hooves on their own, and a lot of times we don't even need to trim them at that point. But yeah, every 2 months we check them and see if they need to be done. And last on the list we have brushing. Most people probably don't brush their goats. They can generally just rub up on whatever they can to rub the coat out themselves. They definitely feel a lot better if we go ahead and do it, so we do it. They look a lot better too, not having a bunch of puffballs sticking out of them all over. And it makes them feel much more comfortable. I like to use a typical slicker brush that you would use for dogs. It does really well at breaking up the fibers of the coat and catching the little puffballs. And a comb helps to go through and helps to see how thoroughly you've got through the coat and see if you missed anything. Not all goats like to be brushed. Most of ours do, and they feel much better afterwards. And there you have it. That's our springtime checklist of what to do with the goats. A lot of those things we'll do throughout the year just to make sure they're good and healthy. Hope you guys like this video, and we'll catch you next time.